I will talk about raising children, but psychiatrists tend to talk a lot, by the way, so bear with me if I get distracted and talk about so many things, and just try to follow me. I studied neurology before I became a psychiatrist, and I like neurology, I like the brain, and I learned a long time ago that we as human beings are born with empty brain, like an empty CD. Like you have a flash drive that doesn't have any information. And then we start to learn after birth, and the first figure that we see in front of our eyes is our mothers. So this lecture is probably very important for the ladies on my left side, is to pay attention to it. And if you guys know that how important you are in the development of your children's brain, you will be amazed. Forgive me, my brothers here, that maybe they are much, much more important, and you have to know that. And our role as men is to support them, to provide children with healthy brains. I always say that there is reality, and there is internal representation of reality. These are two different things. They say the beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. So in our brain, we have sensory areas that make me see you guys and see faces and bodies sitting in front of me. And we have 5 sensory modalities. If you look at the brain, next to every sensory center, there's something called the association center, which is the perception center. So it gives you the meaning of the sensation. So you see something, then the meaning is different. We see things differently. Men see things differently than women. And children, when they are born with a blank, an empty CD in the association cortex. So they see things, then the meaning we add to them. We tell them what that is. So we feed, especially the mothers, they feed the children with milk and food and water. They feed them also sense of security. And I always say that secure mothers produce secure children and secure communities. And insecure mothers produce insecure children, insecure communities, period. And really very important for us as parents to be aware of ourselves first and how we see things. If you look back to our brain and how it works, what will happen if you damage the sensory area of the brain? You don't see, so you have blindness. What will happen if you damage what's called the visual association cortex, which is the association center that gives you the meaning of vision? You will be seeing something, but you don't know what it is. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَإِنَّهَا لَا تَعْمَى الْأَبْصَارُ وَلَكِنْ تَعْمَى الْقُلُوبُ الَّتِي فِي الصُّدُورِ. So sometimes blindness is not actually sensory blindness, it's actually perceptual. That you see everything, but you don't recognize it. They call that agnosia. And some patients with strokes can have that. They call it word blindness or word deafness. So the meaning of things that we put in the child since birth. Types of human beings. There are people who have internal locus of control, and there are people who have external locus of control. Today I will talk a lot about culture, and I came from the Arab culture, and probably a lot of people here came either from the Arab culture or the Indo-Pak culture, unless you were born here in this country. And culture is very powerful, and there's something called cultural determinism. And we're born with certain assumptions in our heads, and we come here with it, we think it is right, and when we come here to this country, actually I am indebted a lot to this country. I changed a lot. I'm proud to say that America taught me a lot. I learned a lot from coming here. My way of thinking has changed since I came to this country, and I'm very proud to be American. I'm very proud to be a Muslim American, and I have nothing but respect to the American culture that changed me. And if anybody has doubts about that, there is a problem here. We came here, this country, to live here, to die here, and to be Americans like anybody else. This part causes a lot of problems for the kids. If the parents themselves, or some parents, have this sense of guilt, or have this sense of connection to their parents' culture, where they came from, which is fine, but in my opinion, I can see that our cultures where we came from have problems. And I upset people when I say that we came with cultures, that the cultures we came from have problems. And in America here, this country is the greatest country on earth because their culture promotes excellence. I mean, our culture, there are two qualities of our culture, and I write on Facebook, and I wrote 5 characteristics of the Arab culture. And I know you may apply that also to some of the Eastern cultures. And these characteristics, what bring us backward. And I can see that. We're lacking the critical thinking. I mean, we're very interested in miracles. We're very interested in conspiracy theories. We have what I called external locus of control. Because we have problems in the way we are governed. That's why somebody else is influencing us. And I wrote one time on Facebook, somebody told me, actually, we don't have external locus of control. We have extraterrestrial locus of control. We always think that somebody else is controlling us. And it's always, if a water pipe breaks in the streets in Cairo, Egypt, it's going to be a American Zionist act. Somebody broke that. Why is that? Because you don't have control over themselves. Because the way the system runs is like that. There is always a conspiracy. Or there's always, we not Allah that the malaika, the angels will come and fix the broken pipe. You broke it. You fix it. And I always tell people that, and I told I will digress, and I am digressing, I know that, but I will go back, is that عندما تدعو Allah, when you pray for God subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're the one who's going to fix your problems. There's a big difference there. You ask Allah for guidance to help you as a human being make your decision. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not bring angels for you to make your decisions for you. No. Allah will not solve your problems for you. This is the way we were raised. Now, when I came to this country, I realized that I am in control of my life and I can change it. And when there is a problem in the community, we sit together and we fix it. We still pray for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We still have our faith inside us, but we fix our problem. And Allah will not send His angels, and Allah will not send His adab on our enemies to destroy them. We have to work hard to fight for our rights. This mentality, this kind of, the sense of miracle coming to help us, and the concept of faith is changed in me. The whole concept of faith. And I'll start with this because this is a huge problem. And I want you to search for the phases of development of faith. That was written by James Fowler. The phases of faith development. And you're going to see that this is regardless of any faith, by the way. I mean, you can see it starts with the phase of fitra, the undifferentiated phase, and then it goes to a literal phase and a ritualistic phase. And then the final 3 stages of faith development that he talked about, there is a sense of the personal meaning of faith, the introspection of faith. Then after that, there is a sense of enlightenment. And then you have a sense of transcendence. It goes like this. So you understand the personal meaning of faith. You become transcendent, which you become altruistic, where you care about other people more you care about yourself. Then there is the heightened sense of enlightenment. When you're so close to God, you have a sense of divine inside you, that you feel that sense of faith inside you. Most of, I think, our cultures, we are arrested in growth at the literal, ritualistic phases of faith development. That we did not grow beyond that, which is the literal interpretation of the text and the rituals that we do. So we pray, we fast, and all of that, and we did not go beyond this phase of the literalism and the ritualism, and we didn't go to this kind of introspection of understanding ourselves, and then the transcendence, and then the enlightenment. When I heard that there is a homeless shelter for anybody in the community, regardless of their faith, in a mosque, that is a higher stage. That's why I tell you guys are more advanced than other, because you went beyond. We prayed, and then what are we going to do after that? And as Sheikh Muhammad al-Ghazali says, is that we always talk about the 5 pillars of Islam. If you ask any kid in Sunday school, in the Islamic schools, what are Islamic, the 5 pillars of Islam? So the Islam is not the 5 pillars of Islam. These are the pillars. Sheikh al-Ghazali say these are the foundations of Islam. So what will happen after that? This is not enough. This is just the beginning. This is the basis, is how to be a human being. And then after that, you become a human being. You become a transcendent human being that's close to God. And you know that you yourself as a body, as a human being, is not that important. That kind of self-interest, and you start to become interested in other people. That's what you guys doing here. And that is exactly what's lacking. And that's exactly what I learned here in this country. My country, Egypt, did not teach me that. Why is that? Because the culture there does not have the sense of the ability to change. They don't promote growth. They promote arrest of growth, because somebody else is doing the job for you. Thanks for America, and thanks for democracy, and thanks for the effectiveness here that we can change things. When something we do not like, we go and change it. And you guys build this center, you start working on this. You cannot do this in our countries there. You can't do it. They may arrest you because you're doing something against the government, right? So that's the beauty of this culture. And if anybody has issues with the American culture, I personally don't have any issues with them. I love the American culture. And I was talking with the youth about a month ago, and I asked them, what is in the American culture that contradicts Islamic values? And they came up with 4 things. Okay, the sexual freedom, one, okay, alcohol, okay, drugs, and they eat pork, and we don't eat pork. That's it. What is there in the American culture that actually fits our Islamic value is actually everything else. Everything. American culture is an Islamic culture. If you exclude those 4 things we talked about, who cares about pepperoni? You just don't eat it. But by the way, the sexual freedom, the drugs and alcohol, many of our American friends and neighbors do not agree with. So we're not the only one. We're not unique about that. Many people do not want their kids to have relationships. Many religious people. Right? Everything in the American culture is Islamic. You see people smiling for each other on the streets. Who ordered us for that? You see people holding the doors for each other. Who ordered us to do that? You don't see that in our culture. Why are we having problem with the American culture? I don't see any reason for us to have any problem with the American culture. A study was done about the country has the most Islamic value in the world. And it was not an Islamic country. I think they rated them. Number 1 was Ireland. So that's what we learned from. And that's what we should be proud of saying. I personally owe a lot to being an American. I personally owe a lot for being here. I'm very proud of myself for bringing my kids here. And I always tell my kids, when I talk to the youth, if your parents were wrong in everything, let's say your parents were terrible. Those kids who are here, listen to this. If your parents were wrong in everything, they did 2 things that you should be grateful for the rest of your life. They brought you here to this country, if you're not originally from here, and they brought you Islam easily. So you became an American Muslim, and if you don't know what the value of being an American Muslim, you probably need to go and see how other people are living. And each one of us, when we raise our kids, especially those who are coming here, who are having kids or still coming here new to this culture, you need to believe in that, and you're not going to go back. And by the way, raising your kids here is much safer than raising kids in any other place in the world, if you know exactly what you're doing to your kids. And I have to say this in the beginning. This is very important for us to believe in that and understand that being in this country and in this culture is actually Islamic. I went so far one time, and I advocated one time for American Islam. Of course, you could imagine, oh my God, people heard this word. What do you mean, American Islam? I know what it means. I mean, I really advocate for a civilized and advanced form of Islam that's very similar to the American culture with our values. We can add to the American culture. We have values that can add and actually can help the American culture. We have the family values. We take care of our kids. And those of you who have seen American families, and I dealt with kids and people who are born, you can see the problems there. We still care about our kids, and care. With all the problems we have, we still care about our kids. We have these ties, the emotional ties with our kids. And always my daughter tells me, Baba, I got the best of both worlds. I got an open-minded American thinking parents, and I got Arab parents who cared about me. And really, all of us, whether you're Arab or Indo-Pak, okay, your kids got the best of both worlds. If you're open-minded, if you think like an American, and you have this kind of family values that we Muslims have, and we can bring actually ideal children to the world, if we can do that. So we have a lot to offer to this. To the culture here. And the culture is, we know that the American culture has a lot of problems in it. We know that. And we as Muslims know something very well called cultural equality. And I remember when I was a resident of psychiatry in Virginia about 15, 20 years ago, I was on call with a black nurse, a male black nurse. We were talking, we were just sitting in the evening, and he told me, you guys had a black president in Egypt. I told him, no, we didn't have a black president in Egypt. And he told me, no, you did have a black president. Anwar Sadat was black. And I told him, wallahi, I never realized that Anwar Sadat was black. This black-white thing is an American thing. I know that Anwar Sadat was dark-skinned, but I don't care if he was black. I never thought about it this way. And I was in a lecture about cultural diversity, and I told the lecturer that when I was around that time. You know what she told me? That's why a lot of African Americans are attracted to your religion. So we do have that. But unfortunately, we brought from our country racism with us. We brought it. And we look at people the same way. That's not Islamic. That is not Islamic. That's cultural that we brought it with. You have the caste system that comes with it, and the rich and the poor and the white or black. We brought. This has nothing. Islam actually destroyed that. Okay. One other thing we can add to the American the American culture. Yeah, I mean, American culture and the American Constitution is based on pleasure, the pursuit of pleasure. Well, the Islamic pleasure is associated with the sense of virtue. So we don't have this kind of absolute freedom. No, we have the virtue inside us, al-fadila, that we still have limitations to what we can do and what we cannot do. We're not free, reckless to do anything. And I always tell the kids, delaying your gratifications. When the kids ask you why I cannot have a boyfriend and girlfriend like my friends at school, actually, and I can see that delaying gratification actually leads to happiness in the long term. People who actually get indulged too much in pleasurable activities very early in their lives, they get depressed by age 30 or 40 because you have done everything. And you can see that with drug addicts. You can see that with substance abuse. You can see that with alcoholics. It's pleasurable early, but the more you get involved in that, you start to become depressed. And all of my drug addicts, men and women in their 30s and 40s, are very depressed. Because you can say that they consumed all their energy very early in their lives. So actually, when we tell our kids, delay your gratification till you finish your college and get married and have fun after that. I mean, Islam is not against fun. It's not against pleasure. No, it is. We made it like that. And actually, I like it when I see Muslims happy and doing things and rich and enjoying their lives. I don't know why. We have this culture came that the religious people are just, you see on their face, you just say angry and they look like, I don't know why. I don't know why we don't just smile. You can see that. You can see al-mutadayyin kida has a face, a special face on their expressions. I mean, America taught us to laugh, to smile and have fun and be happy. Like this. If you're walking on the streets like this, people look at you weird. Why are you like that? And that's Islamic. So I have to say this introduction before I talk about how to raise our kids, because I know very well that all of us who came to this country need to understand these values and these issues, and we have to put it in our kids. Since my kids were very young, I told them, you guys are as American as anybody else. I don't care. You're as American as anybody else. And by the way, as I will mention later, the communication between us and our kids is between husbands and wives is nonverbal to a great extent. It's not what you say. It has nothing to do with what you say. It's how you say it. If you're insecure about being in America, your kids will be insecure. Regardless of what you say, you can say anything. You yourself first have to be secure and know that you yourself as American as anybody else. This is true for our ladies in particular, because men, they work, they got engaged with the American culture at work and things like that. Especially, no, you ladies with your hijab, with your dress, are as American as anybody else. And that's the beauty of this country. And we need to believe in that. And if we have that sense of doubt, if we have that sense of insecurity when we see an American white woman or American man or like this, or people looking at us, there's no reason. Just calm down. We are as American as anybody else. And we have a lot to offer to this culture, a lot to offer to this country. And we came here for a reason, and we're doing a good job. So the child, now I'm going to talk about the topic, raising children. Okay, so the child is born with an empty CD in their heads, and the first thing he or she sees is their mother's face. And then the child start to walk and start to do things, and the child will be walking and carrying a glass of milk and drops it on the floor. And the mother said, right? Please don't do that. Right? Because the first thing that the infant sees is, oh my God, I don't know why people make a big deal. بالمصري يقول لك يا لهوي يا لهوي اتخضيت يا ابني جرى لك يا ابني. Why is that? Why is that? The child fell, broke the glass, dropped the milk, dropped something. Why are we doing that? Why do we instill in their face, from our face, that the world is unsafe? They drop, if you're doing this, do not do it in front of your child. Be careful with your emotional expressions. Because he will catch it. They will get it. Really, we have tried, and they teach alcoholics in AA meetings, something very important. You can apply it to many aspects of life. Fake it till you make it. They teach alcoholics that if you lack the confidence, fake the confidence till you become confident. Wake up every day in the morning and tell yourself in the mirror, I'm a confident person. I'm the best person in the world. Really fake it and change your cognitive schema in your head. And if you're an anxious person, hide your anxiety from your child. So this kind of non-verbal communication is very important. The second thing that's very important is the assumptions. And you're born with certain assumptions in your head about your child. The self-fulfilling prophecy. Okay, and I see this a lot. The mother, the wife, has a problem with the husband, and immediately she identifies the child. You're exactly like your father. Who said that? I call it Nazariyat Layla Murad. They call it emotional reason. I have 3 Nazariyat I wrote on Facebook. Nazariyat Layla Murad, Nazariyat Layla Nazmi, and Nazariyat Sharifa Fadil. I can talk to you about them. It is psychological theories. Those of you from Egypt or the Arab will know what these songs are. I don't know if you know. Nazariyat Layla Murad is an Albi Dalili Alli Hathabbi. My heart is my, whatever, my indicate, something, yeah, my guide, my guidance, yeah. So she go and sees Anwar Wagdi and fall in love with him. That's a false theory. Okay, that's this theory of the self-fulfilling prophecy. You think of something, you make it happen. It can be a good way and can be a bad thing, by the way. Which is, they say in Arabic, اللي يخاف من العفريت يطلع له. So if we believe there is a afreed, there is a devil or shaitan outside the door, we're going to see something. The first child who's going to run in us, we're going to think this is the afreed. And I will tell you an experiment that was done. This is very important. If you believe in your child as somehow, you're going to make it like this. So if you always have a sense of guilt, oh my God, I'm raising my child in America, he's going to be this and this and that. He's going to be this and this and that. You're going to make it. When I got married to my wife very early, when you were married, told me, why are you treating me like my father? I told her, Wallah, I have nothing to do with your father. You made me treat you like your father. You think of me as your father. And by the way, all of us, like I see our husbands as our father, and all of us see our wives as mother. Why is that? Why is that? Because that thinks the association cortex in our brain, it is saturated with our mother, it is saturated with our father, it is saturated with our past. And we tend to make that as a reference point. So it's always, أصل بختي الأسود, right? نصيبي, right? I don't know what these things are. And this is all cultural, by the way. البخت والنصيب, القدر, even القضاء والقدر. Our culture misunderstands القضاء والقدر. And I wrote an article about that. Do you know that your genes are not a destiny for you anymore? There is an article. If you Google genes are not destiny, you talk about al-qada wal-qadar, your genes are not destiny anymore. You could change them. Google genes are not destiny. There is a whole new science called epigenetics, that you could change your genes. مفهوم القضاء والقدر, we need to change it. That's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created everything. He knows everything. But in where I came from, when people make mistakes, when people have accidents on the roads and people die and they let them die, they call qada wa qadar. They write in their death certificates qada wa qadar. Wallahi, they write that. That's a takhalluf. That's exactly what I'm talking about. You don't know qada'ak and qadarak what? Al-qada' wal-qadar help you, the belief in qada' after it happens, not before it happens, because you do not know what the qada' is. So you're deceiving yourself when you're lazy and you're not doing what you're supposed to do and you say it's qada' wa qadar. No, habibi, that's wrong. Because you did not know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wrote for you. How do you know it? After it happened. And وَإِنَّنَا نَفِرُّ مِنْ قَدَرِ اللَّهِ إِلَى قَدَرِ اللَّهِ. Both of them are qadar. So if you have cancer and you neglected it and you start to get treatment at advanced, it says it's qada. It's not qada wa qadar. You could have prevented it. And al-qada is preventable because you don't know what it is. So even if you're born with the gene of heart disease, and since adolescent age, you have strict diet, you're controlling your cholesterol, you're exercising. Could you imagine you're going to turn off the gene of heart disease and you're going to inherit to your children clean genes? Could you imagine that? That's called epigenetics. It's a new science in medical school. You could actually alter your genes if you change your life. I talked about earlier about internal locus of control. That's what it is. And that's America taught us that. Taught you to be in control of your life, in control of everything. Don't let anything for chance. And you call the chance qada wa qadar because you didn't do what you're supposed to do. So that's something we have to know. So you have from now have a plan to raise your children a certain way and do everything you can and work on it. And after that, you leave it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And have faith that what you're doing is right, but you're the one who will make the change. There's no angels going to come to you and do anything for you, nothing. And the concept of dua, we need to understand what dua means. Dua means give you some satisfaction. It's not going to solve your problems. You have to know this because this is something that in many Muslims had this way. And when the Jesus statue got burned, when it got the lightning there, and I saw these videos, Allahu Akbar. Okay, الصاعقة نزلت من السماء and destroyed Jesus statue. They built another one bigger than the other one. And guess what? What happened in the Haram, in the Kaaba? What happened to that crane that killed 80 people? Did Allah prevent it from coming because it's in a sacred? It's not. It fell. You know what people said? That the crane made sujood and killed people. I can't believe the amount of takhalluf fi uqul al-nas al-Arab, how they think about Islam. It's not the fault of religion. We do have the most intellectual religion present. It's not. No. Allah told us يَتَفَكَّرُونَ وَيَعْقِلُونَ tens of times in the Quran. We interpret it in a way that is idiotic because our culture is backward. That's how it is. So start to interpret everything. And we came to this country where we think critically, including reviewing everything we know about religion and apply critical thinking. Because Islam is common sense. So, and many of khutbah al-Jum'ah, I tell people this is not common sense. Islam is common sense. There's nothing unusual about it. The amount of unusual things or unnatural things is very limited. Sometimes religion in general is not always logical. There are things we do that's not logical. Why do we pray and how we pray? Why? It has a meanings to it. But these are very limited. And if you look at it, you look at the ibadat, even the ibadat that we do, it has a psychological meaning for us to get better. But we don't talk about it. Even the sujood is the ultimate humility. And if the sujood does not make us humble, we're not doing it right. And the fasting gives us the ultimate self-control. So al-ibadat has a meaning to help us for personal growth and go those final stages. We're talking about the introspection and the transcendence and the enlightenment is to be higher human beings. So back to the child gets it from us, and we do not assume that the child will be this way or that way because we do not know and we have no idea. So you have to start raising your child with no assumptions at all. And if you have positive assumptions, you will have positive results on your child. We'll tell you an experiment. And try to Google Rosenthal Jacobson study, Pygmalion effect in education. And what's that? Jacobson, Rosenthal. These are the two. If you write Jacobson/Rosenthal experiment or Pygmalion, أسطورة Pygmalion, it's a Greek myth. You know مسرحية سيدتي الجميلة بتاعت شوي كارر وفؤاد المهندس, that you know that it was about Bernard Shaw, Pygmalion. So what the Pygmalion effect is, it's the self-fulfilling prophecy. Rosenthal and Jacobson went to a school. They examined all the children in the school, and they examined all the teachers. They did like IQs and achievement tests and education tests, okay? And they assessed the teachers' abilities to teach, how effective they are. And they rated them from top to bottom, and they rated the students, and they created a special class from the top-rated student and the top-rated teachers. And of course, this was the dream class. And at the end of the year, they evaluated the class. Of course, logically, this class performed the best among all the other classes, because they have genius students, genius teachers worked together in creating this class. The interesting part is that at the end of the year, they went to them and told them, we are sorry, we lied to you guys. The students were a random group of students. So the teacher said, that's possible because we are the best students and we were able to convert regular students into genius people there. And they told them, we are sorry, we even lied in that as well. You guys also were average teachers. So average teachers and average students who believed in themselves that they are genius, they made their self genius. The same or another related group, they were working with rats, genetically modified rats. So these are rats, they play with their genes. So they take one gene out, the gene of some brain activities or things like that. And the same researcher, he was giving his graduate students a group of rats and lie to them and tell them these are mentally retarded rats. Go and train them. And then he will take another group of rats, give them to another group of graduate students, and tell them these are genius rats. I modified the genes, okay? And guess what? They will come after 6 months. The mentally retarded rats, what he told them, are actually mentally retarded, and the genius rats become genius. You know why? Because there's something called selective attention. Because we pay attention to what we want. So that graduate student, already with the assumption that this rat is mentally retarded, slow, the first time they put them in that maze and they make a mistake, oh, here we go again. Just leave him there. I told you he's mentally retarded. Right? They don't try again. So already have the assumption that they are slow anyway, so they don't work hard with them. So by the end of the 6 months, they don't train them. The same type of rats go to another group of graduate students. They think that they are fast. Oh, when they make mistakes, what they say? Oh, just wait, just try one more time, Maybe it's a one time. And they keep pushing and pushing and pushing till they train them. So 6 months down the road, these are very slow rats. You made them slow. And these are very fast rats. You made them. So this assumption that my son looks like his father and his father is so and so is not necessarily right. Or he's exact. And I see that a lot with troubled families. And people come, just the mothers come and say that, and the fathers come and say, oh, exactly like his mother, exactly like this. No, there's nothing, there's no evidence of that. You have to be open-minded about that, because you will instill in your children these values. The communication is very important. And the other theory, so this is Layla Murad, which is the emotional reasoning. The other theory that I always talk about is Nazariyat Layla Nazm. If anybody, this old songs, okay, you know, I call it Amma Naima Naamin Khalli Alaywa Yakallimni. You know this song? Or that? Naamin Khalli Alaywa Yakallimni. Why in the world is she's asking Amma Naima for Alaywa to talk to her? I always ask her, why she doesn't go and talk to Alaywa directly? Please avoid what's called the psychological triangulation. Please avoid the psychological triangulation. The child to be in the middle of a triangle. We need to keep our children away from the triangle. Go tell your dad this and this. No. What's that? Or go tell your mom this and this. You go and talk to Alaywa yourself. Psychological triangulation is dangerous. It's really dangerous. In our culture, it's full of that. It's not just triangulation, it's quadrangulation and quintuplication. Because we have this kind of family enmeshment. Right? So there is always a mother-in-law and a father-in-law and an uncle and aunt and all of those getting together, and you end up with a mess. Nothing is better than direct communication. Whether it's with the child, whether it's with the husband, whether it's with the wife. This thing, tell them this, or go tell me that, or do this or that. It is not healthy. And it all comes from low self-esteem, low self-confidence, fear of conflict. Okay, nothing better than to be calm and to be assertive and to say what you want and avoid what is called the passive-aggressive behavior. Very common in where we came from. There was a video on YouTube, I put it as an example of passive-aggressive behavior. One person is talking to a person from one of the ministries in Egypt, and of course the spokesperson for the ministry felt that he got in trouble because he caught him. So he called him. He knew what he's going to say. He's probably going to insult him somehow. So he kept saying, "Is this so and so?" I don't know. No. Who do you want? Who do you need? What number is this? What is this? What is this? No. That's you. I know that it's you. No. It's not me. I think you got the wrong number. You got the wrong number. And then immediately, this is passivity. Why don't you say, I am so and so, but I don't want to talk to you? And then at the end, when he insisted, he lashed at him and he became very aggressive and violent. We came from a culture that promotes passivity and aggression because everybody is afraid of everybody. One of the values of the American culture, it promotes assertiveness. My son in 7th grade told me, Baba, we had a class about passive aggression and assertiveness. My daughter goes to elementary school, teach the young kids the I statements. I don't like you to treat me like this. I'm not going to allow you to demean me and put me down.
Which states? Just possible.
Because they're either afraid or they have low self-confidence in themselves. And the children do that. It is better for your child to tell you exactly why they did what they did without being afraid of your responses to them. And by the way, very important, it takes two people to raise a child. And there is a reason Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put this kind of marriage, a man and a woman. And really it takes two people. And I know men and women have different personalities, have different styles. They see things different. And very important, if the mother cannot do something, the father can do it. And for every child, there is an internal representation of the mother on one side, an internal representation of the father on one side. And by the way, when I talk about mother and a father, I know some families are not the usual families. It's better to say there is an internal representation of a mother figure, an internal representation of a father figure. And the father figure can be a grandfather, the mother figure can be a grandmother, can be an aunt, can be an uncle. And sometimes, actually, people raised by a single mother and a single father, and they are very healthy. Why? Because the mother is actually have the two roles together. So, or the father have the two roles together. I know life is tough sometimes, circumstances happen. Some families do not go the usual way, and there's nothing wrong with that. We just have to deal with it. And if your child, okay, need a father figure, there are so many ways you can find that. And I always tell people that the masjid can be the surrogate parent of the missing father in the family. If the father is busy, really we have to provide the masajid for our children like that. And whether you can be a mentor, or if the child has a problem with his parents, or a problem with his mother or his father, they can come here to the masjid, and they can find a mother figure in the masjid here, somewhere. And please provide that for the kids. And they can love you exactly like your mother. And by the way, I see very dysfunctional human beings. That's my job. To the extent that I no longer get surprised of anything. I always ask my patients, what's the worst thing that happened to you in your childhood? And I heard everything. I never get surprised. One person surprised me a long time ago, and I was not expecting that at all. I was asking a person, what's the worst thing that happened to you in your childhood? And he told me, when I was 10 years old, I killed my father. I was not expecting that. And I thought that I told him, did you kill your father metaphorically? And you got rid of him? Or no, he told me, no, I killed my father. Physically killed him? And he told me, yes. And I told him, how? This is a person, his father was alcoholic, coming every night intoxicated, hitting his mother and hitting him. Since he was a child, seeing the scene, hate the night to come, so his father comes from the bar to hit him and his mother. And they have a gun in the house. And that day he came and he decided he's going to end this, a 10-year-old child. His father came, he hid somewhere. When his father came from the door, started to be violent, shot him and killed him. There's nothing worse than that. Of course, this man has had troubled life, all his life. I mean, interesting, see how the brain works? I mean, I'm not sure if this person is alive or dead. This was a long time ago. I saw him. This person came to me. He was in and out of jail. And I saw him one time out of jail. He was so happy. And I told him, what happened? He told me, I found a girlfriend. And said, really, who's that woman who agreed to be with this man? I couldn't believe it. Very aggressive man. And wallahi, I had the urge to ask him, how old is she? And I knew. She's a 70-something-year-old woman. He was in his 40s. And I knew that. I just wanted to find a polite way of asking him, till I found that polite way of asking him. And the man killed his father and got married to his mother. That's what Freud said. See how the things stay in our heads. That Oedipus complex, if those of you who studied psychology. What is that? So there are unconscious motives in our minds. Right? So when I tell you that the wife has this kind of father's figure in her head, that she always finds examples of the father, these things are true. We are born with an internal representation of a father figure and a mother figure, and we live all our lives with that, and we have to realize that, by the way. And when we raise our kids, we have to realize that we are instilling these values in them about that. So we talked about assertiveness. We'll talk about being very truthful with our children. Do not lie to them. And when children do something wrong, you sit with them and you tell them one-on-one. I remember one time, and Omar, you remember that, he did something and I didn't like it. And I came there from work and my wife told me, Omar did this. And I told her, just don't do anything. Come with me, Omar. We took the car, we drove, we went to a very dark parking lot. He still remembers it, right? Okay, and we sat only me and him in the car. And I told him, Omar, this is the last time I want you to do this. I was very calm, and I told him, it's not you who do these things. You don't. Not you. And I'm not expecting it, and I don't want to see it again. And I was so sincere with him, and he knew that. And guess what? He never did it again. And I remind him. When we go there, I told him, you remember this? Yes. That, what are you doing? You're instilling in the child. You don't have to yell at them. You don't have to scream at them. You don't have to punish them. You really need to instill in them a sense of guilt. Guilt is not always bad. Too much guilt is unhealthy. But there is a sense of guilt. They say that having, this is for the fathers, interesting, that having a stable internal representation of the father's figure is the prototype for getting the concept of God in the child's head. So a child who has a shaky sense of father will have a shaky sense of God. So when you instill in, when my father in my head is stable, that's exactly how I see God. So when I know that my father will be upset at me, when I do this, that's a primitive way of later on, that when you are by yourself, you know that you're not going to do anything wrong because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be upset at you. It starts with that. When we have that sense of guilt of doing something wrong, that comes from that, because we do have those figures in our heads, and that's what symbolizes the concept of God, what the concept of God is. So when the child does something wrong, talk with them, respect them, get that positive thing out of them. And they say there are 3 fears in the primitive psychology, the Freudian. There's fear of loss of the object, which the mother will disappear. This is very painful. And this leads to a sense of mistrust of the world. When the mother tells the child, I'm going to leave you and go, this is dangerous. Because the mother is the main attachment between the person and the child. There is another level of fear, which is called fear of, that might be a healthy way. I will lose the love of my father. I will lose the love of God subhanahu wa ta'ala. When that sense is there, that gives you a sense of faith inside you. That's why I protect you from doing something wrong. Especially when the child knows that you are the rock for your child. When I get a person with very dysfunctional background and I find them healthier than I expect, and I ask them, how you develop that? You're giving me an equation that's not adding up. Your background is very difficult. Why you became okay? And always give me one figure in your life that protected you. What was your rock as a child? Immediately what they say? My aunt, my uncle, my grandmother. I really want you to be the rock for your child. Your child needs a rock to depend on when he needs you, regardless of what they do. So when they do something wrong, they are not afraid to come to you, and you have it in your head, I'm going to tell my dad. You don't have to do anything. The fact that you are there for them is enough. Children do mistakes, they do wrong things, and we always talk about how to punish your children, how to discipline your children, whether this. I never in my life put a hand on any of my children, period. Never. You can ask them behind my back. Never. I never needed to do that. I never needed to do any punishment like this. I don't even needed to put them in time out. And please, you have to know there are ways of correcting your child behavior by rewarding the good instead of punishing the bad. Okay, the child is doing wrong things 23 hours of the day. There is 1 hour, it's a golden opportunity for you to correct the behavior. Never underestimate the power of praise. We always say, you're not gonna spoil your child by praising them, by the way. Okay, you have to praise your children. You have to be friends with your children. You really have to tell your daughter how beautiful she is. If your daughter, especially daughters, is not satisfied internally inside her that how my father sees me, she's gonna go with the first jerk who tells her you are beautiful. Remember that. If the girl is satisfied and feels good about herself, she's not gonna care about jerks. And all those girls, and I ask my daughter, those girls who go with boys and all of that, he told me, Baba, they are very insecure. Why are they insecure? They are insecure because they do not get that sense of security from their parents that I am good, I deserve better than that. And I can delay my gratification because I have things to do. And that's what we need to tell our kids. We have to tell our kids that you don't have, and kids and come and ask and all of these things. And by the way, all my kids went to regular school. They did not go to Islamic school. All schools. I did not homeschool. All of them went to regular schools, public schools. And we all have to do that. If you prefer Islamic school, it's fine. But if your kids go to public school, you have to be extremely careful of how to treat them. You don't just throw them like that. And especially nowadays with this kind of Islamophobic environment, and the kids have to be strong enough to fight for themselves and be confident enough, and they know that my parents will support me. And they have to know, I'll go back to what I said earlier, I am not less American than anybody else. I'm more American than you. And all of us here and our kids are as American as anybody else. And by the way, we have a lot to offer to this community. And what you guys are doing in this center, you're offering a lot to this community. And you should be proud of yourself for that. And the kids need to know that. And being here in this center and seeing what you guys are doing like this, all these things will be instilled in your kids' head. But you have to be confident yourself in yourself. Really, if you're anxious, if you're insecure, there's no reason to do that. And as I told you early, fake it till you make it. So what we need to do is to have in our kids a solid American Muslim identity. And we don't know what it is. It's new to us. We know that there are Egyptian Muslims. We know there are Indian Muslims. We know there are Pakistani Muslims. Even within the Indian Muslims, there are Hyderabadi Muslims and other Muslims and like that. We all are Muslims. I know when I upset people, say, brother, Islam is, and we all one ummah, I know that. But I don't like these slogans. Okay, let me tell you what Islam is about. Islam is aqeedah. It's a belief system. We all believe in the same way. If anybody said anything outside of the aqeedah, is not a Muslim. You're another religion. And after the layer of aqeedah is a layer of ibadat. That's the second layer. And we all agree with this. So any Muslim who believes in the same aqeedah and do the same ibadat will be Muslims. The difference is, and actually there are different versions of Islam outside of these. What comes after that, the akhlaq and the muamalat. Okay, if you ask somebody from the Indo-Pak community about after what's something very important after these two layers, they will say the zabiha meat and the halal meat and things like that. The Arabs will say it is not important, it's not a priority. If you ask the Arab women, they will tell you the hijab. The Indo-Pak community may tell you it's not a priority. Well, there are differences there. Can we go beyond that and talk about morality? So when we have an American form of Islam or an American Muslim identity, we're talking about the same aqidah like any Muslim, the same ibadat like any Muslim. Can we have then a civilized personality based on what Islam is? And in my opinion, that's exactly what Islam is about. So being an American Muslim is exactly what a Muslim anywhere else. That's actually, we're way ahead of people when we do that. I don't want anybody from Egypt or Jordan or Kenya or India or Afghanistan to teach me what Islam is about. Why is that? Why we get sheikh from us? With all due respect to everybody, it's a different culture. And I really prefer to have a sheikh from here who knows exactly what civilization is. And I struggle when I get sheikh from different culture. We all struggle with that. And who struggles the most with that? Our kids. And it's not the fault of it's the way of teaching. It's a fault of there are first world and second world and third world. And we're lucky to be in one of the first world countries. And you bring a sheikh, the best sheikh from Al-Azhar University, and make a khutbah, and look what the kids will say. They don't understand. By the way, I don't understand what they are talking about. I really do not understand what they are talking about. And sometimes I listen to khutbah al-Jum'ah and I do not understand what they are talking about. Why is that? Because we're stuck 500,000 years ago. We were not able to reform our thoughts. Muslims were known that they were the thought reformers in the world. Read what Carly Fiorina wrote about Muslims 2 weeks after September 11, 2001. Beautiful piece. Carly Fiorina, please Google it. Google Carly Fiorina on Islam. It was 2 weeks after September 11. And she talks about exactly what, it's amazing. I don't think Muslims have written a piece better than this. I want all of you to read it. As well here. Really, you have to read this. And that's exactly can I get a volunteer who reads English well? Carly Fiorina on Islamic civilization? Yes. Okay. You really have to listen to this. Can you read? Can you see this? Mm-hmm. Okay. Can you read it?
From here to the bottom?
Yes. Okay. Please listen to this. That's how we were. Yeah.
There was once a civilization that was the greatest in the world. It was able to create a continental superstate that stretched from ocean to ocean and from northern climes to tropics and deserts. Within its dominion lived hundreds of millions of people of different creeds and ethnic origins. One of its languages became the universal language of much of the world, the bridge between the peoples of 100 lands. Its armies were made up of people of many nationalities, and its military protection allowed a degree of peace and prosperity that had never been known. The reach of this civilization's commerce extended from Latin America to China and everywhere in between. And the civilization was driven more than anything by invention. Its architects designed buildings that defied gravity. Its mathematicians created the algebra and algorithms that would enable the building of computers and the creation of encryption. Its doctors examined the human body and found new cures for disease. Its astronomers looked into the heavens, named the stars, and paved the way for space travel and exploration. Its writers created thousands of stories, stories of courage, romance, and magic. Its poets wrote of love when others before them were too steeped in fear to think of such things. When other nations were afraid of ideas, this civilization thrived on them and kept them alive. When censors threatened to wipe out knowledge from past civilizations, this civilization kept the knowledge alive and passed it on to others. While modern Western civilization shares many of these traits, the civilization I'm talking about was the Islamic world from the year 800 to 1600, which included the Ottoman Empire and the courts of Baghdad, Damascus, and Cairo, and enlightened rulers like Suleiman the Magnificent. Although we are often unaware of our indebtedness to this other civilization, its gifts are very much a part of our heritage. The technology industry would not exist without the contributions of Arab mathematics. Sufi poet philosophers like Rumi challenged our notions of self and truth. Leaders like Suleiman contributed to our notions of tolerance and civic leadership.
Thank you. Shukran. So this is, and please just go home and read it again and study that. That's how we were till 1600. After that, we stopped thinking. That's exactly what happened. That's how we were. And they say the Western civilization, they have to be aware of their indebtedness to this civilization. And I said earlier that we should be aware of our indebtedness now to the American civilization. But that's how we were. And we were thinkers. We became, for some reason, we have this kind of thinking phobia. If you start to think, if you start to formulate new ideas, people accuse you of kufr, accuse you of khuruj an al-millah wal iyadu billah. We were not like that. So till 1600, there is a 500 years that the Muslims stopped thinking. And I think now we have an opportunity. All the problems we had, forget about all of this, is because of this, because of the thinking arrest. There is an arrest of growth. There is a state of regression. And we went back to literalism, and brother, there's a hadith about this, and brother, there's a hadith about that, and brother, don't do this, because we went back. Why is that? Because we're not able to reform our thoughts. And that's we're dead. We died intellectually. And that's why when people who were taught in the way they are taught now, they come here and they teach us, our thinking now with our education that we learned here in this country, we're not able to understand what they are talking about. Because they are talking about things that happened 1,000 years ago. And they are not able to integrate those ideas, those values of faith into this life, what's going on now. That's why our kids don't understand what these shuyukh say. And if we speak the same language, the old language, our kids will not understand it. And we have to know that. We have to speak to our kids in English, in American English. Otherwise, we're going to lose them. And that gap that I see between parents and kids cause problems. And we need to shorten that gap if we want our kids to be healthy. And we need to know exactly how they think, and we have to think like them if we want them to be healthy, especially when we teach them Islam. I want you to teach them Islam exactly like Carly Fiorina said, and we have to discuss with them everything. And we should not apply things literally to our kids. We need thought reform. And we need people to teach us that, and we all have to be aware of that. And that's the only thing that reformers like Tariq Ramadan talks about. If you listen to Tariq Ramadan, what he's saying is always talk about this, about thought reform. There's nothing. The Salah is the same Salah over the last 1,000, 1,400, 1,500 years ago. The same Salah is not going to change. We're not going to reform the Salah, brother. We're not going to reform the Ibadat, the Siyam. We're not going to break Jum'ah on Sunday. We're not going to do any of that. We have to reform our thoughts. The way we see things is different. That's what invention is. And really, if we want our kids to be creative, we have to tell them Islam is about creativity. It doesn't prohibit you from being creative. And we have to encourage them to do that. And our kids are smart enough to understand that. And they need to take those faith values that we have and apply it to science and apply it to real life they are in now. That's if we really want to advance. I personally am very optimistic that our kids here and the American Muslims could actually lead the Muslim world. They think that we are less religious than them. That's what people think. We actually more religious than a lot of people in the world. And those people are afraid to raise their kids here. Why is that? We are more religious here. Give me another place in the Middle East where people can sit like this in a lecture like this without the FBI coming to arrest half of us or something, or the police or the national security there. We're free to do what we want. We're more free to think, we're more free to practice our religion, and that is the beauty of this country that we should be grateful for. I need to stop here and see if anybody has any comment, anybody has any objections to what I say. That's the American way. Dissent is an American value, right? You have to object, right? Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Any other questions?
I have several questions. How much time do you have?
He's in charge, not me. Do you want to take the microphone? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's better to take the microphone.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum.
You know, we're having a problem with all these devices at home. What solution do you have? And I'm hearing a lot about oppositional defiance disorder, and how do you handle those?
Right. Right.
I'll let you finish with that.
Yeah. Well, the devices are a double-edged sword. The question is about devices at home. Video games, phones, iPads, iPhones, all of those, and their influence on the children. And the other question is about oppositional defiance. Some kids are defiant. And yes, the oppositional defiant disorders actually need treatment. Some kids are born with high levels of hyperactivity, and there are medications for that. There are counseling and types of therapy for that. So first we have to know, is this something mild and transient and phased development related, or this is something pathological that requires treatment? If your kids, by the way, are hyperactive and have attention deficit hyperactivity, a low dose of medication can help. And they work like miracles. I don't advocate those for all kids, but some kids, you can see them, they are by their nature hyperactive. Taking them to a pediatrician or a child psychiatrist will help. The kids' oppositional defiant disorder, kids by their nature at certain age, and we were, okay, especially when they start to go towards puberty, pre-puberty, during adolescence, they tend to be defiant, and they want to be as far away from their parents as possible. That's normal. Normal that the kids do that. We have to be extremely patient. We have to monitor them from a distance, and we have to encourage them to come back to us if they need us. But we need to provide some monitoring for them. There is a difference between monitoring and control. controlling the kids too much will make them lie and do things behind our backs. We really need to monitor and tell them what's right and what's wrong and work on that. It's very important to work both the mother and the father together. If the child responds more to one versus the other, let's put emphasis on the other parent to deal with. For example, if the child does not listen to the father, and the mother can go there, I would go with the child. Maybe I will take him somewhere on a day that he's not, go together, have lunch together, and talk about some of his behavior. And you should not teach him some values. You just have to tell him. Like what I said, I will like you more if you do this. You know, sometimes when I tell my kids, when I see something like this, I tell them, you know what, I was exactly like you. The kids like that. My kids, I tell them a lot, you know what, especially my sons, I tell them, you know what, you remind me exactly like me when I was your age. But you know what, I went over it. When the kid can identify with you, the kids want to be like you, by the way. Our kids want to be, and the girls want to be the mother. Please do not suppress them. Just understand. Empathy is very important. Please understand your kids. Empathy does not mean sympathy. There's a difference between the two. Empathy means understanding where they are coming from. So when the child is angry, when the child is upset, when the child has tantrum, I mean, we know it's wrong behavior, we know like that, but understand why they are doing this. All what you need to do, sometimes an empathic state. Like, I know where you're coming, I know you're upset. When the child knows that you understand their feelings, and that's exactly what I say, the rock that he will depend on. Give them that feeling, that you really feel their pain. Empathy cures a lot of ills. Okay, we have to be careful with our yelling and screaming at the kids is not going to solve problems, by the way. And by the way, some kids are very good. There's something called projective identification. I can spend a long time explaining that. Simply, some kids actually enjoy irritating their parents. Unconsciously. They don't do it consciously. We have to be careful with that. Actually, the mothers or the father who yell and scream a lot, believe me, the kids will do it intentionally to see you yelling and screaming at them. Do not give them that chance. If you're doing it a lot and you see them, they are doing back, they say, here we go, I'm gonna show you now how you see. And it's like a scene for them. And the more angry you are, you're like that. And this is pathological. We really need to stop this. Once you go into that game, we need to stop it. And if one of the parents, the child is playing the game with them, we need to work as a team, so the other person have to do that. But let me tell you, the treatment for many of our children problem is time, the passage of time. Really, if you let things go, sometimes the passage of time is the best cure. Cures a lot of ills. Just be patient, let it go. It's a phase and it will go. Don't try to break it. Sometimes we try to fix every day. The parents who micromanage everything, they cause damage. Don't micromanage, let it go. Yeah. Regarding the devices, you need to set time limits for that. I need to know exactly what your kids are doing. But also you have to instill in them, if they are doing something wrong, you have to get that internal sense that it is wrong and they should not do it. It takes some patience and some work from both parents on this. Okay, faking, believing what you are not, how it's different from pride, overconfidence, superiority complex. How do we teach our children not to take loans or fall in the trap of paying interest? Take loans regarding like college loans or something like that, for example. I think some of them are unavoidable. Regarding, this is very important. When I said fake the confidence, no, I didn't mean to be fake. No, I did not mean that. I mean positive self-talk. That's what I meant. Overconfidence, superiority complex, and here, this is very important. There's something called narcissism. I mean, pathological narcissism. People who are very grandiose, arrogant, have a superiority complex over others. This is not what I'm talking about. Actually, there is an inverse relationship between arrogance and confidence. Arrogant people have inferiority complex. Humble people are confident. Simple thing. So the more confident you are from inside, the more humble you are from outside. If you see a person who's all the time talk about themselves day in and day out, okay, that's narcissism. That's a coverage of internal sense of inferiority, period. Okay, and how you deal with people like this, you need very careful and guided empathy with them. But yeah, some personalities are difficult to deal with. But there is a difference between when I say fake the confidence, I mean talk positively about yourself and have positive self-talk. The question about the loans, I am not sure exactly what it's meant, but in this country there are things that kids need to do to go through education and things like that. Sometimes they have to do it with maybe some other alternatives. Logic does not work. Sometimes convincing kids avoid doing certain acts. If logic does not work, what's the other method? Yeah, logic does not work most of the time, by the way, because our relationship are not logical, intellectual. And I said that in another lecture, another place, that the communication between human beings is emotional, not intellectual. You will leave this lecture whether or not you leave this lecture with an impact on you or not, it has nothing to do with what I said. Has nothing to do with what I said. What I said, you can easily Google it. And I spoke about a lot of things. There's nothing of what I said that you do not know. I did not say anything new. I did not say anything magic. Okay, you will leave this room remembering something from what I said or not depends on whether or not you liked me or not. It's not what I said. If you liked me as a person, the way I talk, it's an emotional thing. You will remember what I said. If you did not like me as a person, you will forget it. You say, forget about this guy. So if your kids like what you say, he will listen to you. It's not logic. When I see people arguing on Facebook about facts, I laugh. I really laugh. And people fight and insult each other about facts, want to convince each other by force about my idea or this idea. You can see that. And I actually I enjoy reading it and laugh. You know what? Because you could actually win the argument by a smile. You can win the argument by an empathic statement. You can win the argument by your facial expressions. You can win the argument by saying, I really feel your pain. Logic has no role in very limited role of logic in our life. Really. If you think you're going to convince people by facts, you're wrong. Whether it's with children, whether it's your wife, whether it's with your husband, whether it's with anybody. And people who are using facts in relationships, especially husband's wife, it's emotional. Relationships are emotional. You have to remember that. We men may not understand this than women. We need to understand the emotional needs of women. And women expressions are different than men. And we have to understand that. But empathy really cures a lot of ill. And empathy comes from within, from ourselves. What is taking your kid a long drive to a dark place to be only me and him, not to scare him? No. No, I did not mean, no, it wasn't very dark. It was just an empty space. I really wanted to be only me and him in an open space, so he will know and he will remember it. And I think it was effective. He's laughing now. This was like 5 years ago. Okay, I really wanted to tell him, this is special. It has nothing to do with your mom or your sister. This is man to man. You and me only. Nobody else is around us. That's the reason why I took him to that space somewhere. So he's going to have a quiet place, the conversation. I wanted to leave an impact. It's an emotional thing. And please don't underestimate the power of emotion. Do not use logic in your relationships, please. There's no logic. Do not convince your husband that he has to do this. No, doesn't work this way. Relationships, human relationships, are not based on intellectual arguments. This is in scientific studies only. Human beings are mainly based on emotions. And we have to understand that. And you can, again, win many arguments if you understand this fact. Not all parents come from different cultures to US are willing to be open-minded and change and adopt the American culture, better understand their children. They often want their children to learn from experience and protect them from trying new things. Yes. Being afraid that they will do mistakes. Yeah, I mean, they are afraid of the sexual freedom and the drugs and alcohol. I know. And that's why we had this lecture today about this, because I don't want people to be afraid. I want people to be confident. And I want people to protect the kids without controlling them and isolating them from the world. This is what it is. That's why people need to come and maybe listen to this tape. And I intentionally say, and I believe in that, I'm very honest with that, there's nothing wrong with the American culture. If you want to take your kids and go live in Amman, Jordan, you're going to face the very same challenges, even worse than here. And please try it and come back and tell me what you found. Okay, if you want to go to Delhi, India, or you want to go to Peshawar, Pakistan, or you want to go to Afghanistan, or wherever you want to go and come back and tell me what it is. We actually had to cancel the Arabic channels because we found it more dangerous than the American channels. We actually have to stop it because it's just the songs, it's amazing. At least the American channel, there are channels you know what it is. But the kids will look at it, is this what Arabs do? This is what, at least when you tell them there are things in the culture we don't approve it, and there are people who do these things, but how are you going to argue with your son or daughter when you say, oh, these are the Egyptians do? So that's how it is. So if you're, we need to educate people. We need to have more activities like this for people to be comfortable. And education. We need to educate them. And the sense of camaraderie among kids themselves here and having youth group here is very important. And my kids are very important with the youth groups and youth activities, and let them have activities and have fun with their friends who are Muslims and carry the same values. And my opinion, please do not separate girls groups and boys groups in the masjid. And when the people go to school, they talk with boys, and then we go to the masjid, they only talk to girls. This hypocrisy needs to stop. I'm really sorry for that. So people talk about they talk to boys in the high school, and we come to the masjid. The same colleague that she sees, she cannot talk to him because we're in the masjid. Oh my God. This needs to stop. The Arab culture, the Eastern cultures are full of hypocrisy. And nifaq, full of hypocrisy. We talk a lot about idealistic thoughts, and we don't do any of them. Okay, I wrote this joke one time. Okay, if you ask an Arab, and I say Arab, I cannot say other because I am an Arab. If you ask an Egyptian, I have the right to say this. If you ask an Arab or an Egyptian, have you ever lied in your life? He will give you a lecture about as-sidq. If you ask an American, have you ever lied in your life? He will say, of course I did. That's the difference. If you ask an Arab person about have you ever lied in your life, he will answer by a hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam about as-sidq. I'm asking you, have you ever lied? This is what I call hypocrisy. We always like this. We fake idealism. This culture is very true. There's truth to it. People just say what it is. I tell you, I'm upset at you. I did this. I'm late. And people tell you, okay, people just will be at home. So I will be still at home, and Brother Basil, I'm late for the lecture, and Brother Basil asked me, Brother Esam, why are you late? Oh, we are on the way, and we haven't even left our house. Because you're afraid to say, I am late, I will be here at 7 instead of 6. Why don't say that? This is where we came from. A lot of hypocrisy, a lot of confusion, a lot of perplexity about thoughts. Here we're clean and we say, I'm sorry, I did something wrong. Please forgive me for this. There is a very clear communication there. So if anybody does not like this culture, tell me, what do you like about the Arab culture, please? Hey, we talk about sexual freedom. Okay, go to Cairo, Egypt, or Amman, Jordan, or Sana'a, Yemen, and see what will happen. What are you afraid of here? I don't see anything. As long as we have masajid like this, that people can come to and learn and have fun, and don't let our girls here come and feel they are like aliens, and boys are aliens. Don't talk to boys. Come on. You will go there, you go to the mall, you see boys and girls, you see men and women. This thing of man-woman thing about morality is hypocritical. It's more in the Arab culture than the Indo-Pak culture, by the way. It's inherent to the Arab. I don't know where it's coming from. And it's coming from the same takhalluf we talked about. Okay, so how would you suggest the best approach to discussing topics regarding activities such as sexuality, suicide, and so on? I mean, if it's age appropriate, you discuss it. If it's age appropriate, you cannot discuss these issues with a 7-year-old. Okay, I mean, don't be afraid to discuss. You talk about suicide. Don't be afraid to hide. If a student committed suicide in the school, to hide it from the child and say, oh, no, it was not suicide, because you're afraid that they will do it. They're not going to do it. People do not imitate suicide because they saw somebody commit suicide. No. Suicide is a very complicated process. Okay, sexuality, I discuss it with my kids. I talk with my daughter all the time. We talk about sexuality, homosexuality, what the kids do in school, drugs and alcohol. And I told her, what drugs do you guys have in school? I'm not afraid. You guys use Ritalin, and they use Xanax, and they use pot, and they use this. And she told me that. And I tell her, can you detect the kids who use pot during lunch? She said, oh, they're pot heads, we know them. What's that? I talked to them about that. I told her, educate me about what's going on in school. And she teach me this. I'd always ask, what's the percent of people using? Do people use in middle school? So when you talk about it, people will not go use drugs unless there's some vacuum inside them they are covering by using drugs, period. If the kids are secure, again, if your kids are confident, okay, tell your daughter, your son, you're going to get married soon. You'll get married as soon as possible, get education. Okay, if you found somebody appropriate, it's fine. I always tell my daughter, I just want to get you. I said, I always talk about how her husband is going to be. And if you know a man, let me know how he's like. And please listen to me. Every day I talk to her like this. I tell her, you're so smart. I'm worried that you're going to get married to an idiot. Please do not get married to an idiot. You're so smart. You need somebody smarter than you. And we laugh at it. And I told her, if you find somebody good for you, let me know. I need to talk to him first. I don't hide it. She's going to get married soon. And I advocate for early marriage for our kids if possible. Why we deprive them from that? So we need to find alternatives. And we need to support our kids. There is nothing wrong. But guess what? We have to secure ourselves, to be secure about talking about it in order to talk about normally with our kids. If we're afraid, we will not be able to talk about it. We will be insecure about it. But you talk to your kids about anything, have a sense of humor about it, laugh at it. And be close to your kids and talk to them about it, and don't be afraid. They are not gonna commit suicide because you talk about suicide, no. Okay. Were you yelled at or spanked by your parents? That's for me. What are the most basic things we can tell our kids as Muslims? I was yelled at a lot, yes. And I don't think I was hit. I don't remember. I might have this minor things. I was not spanked by my parents. I think it's, yes, I grew up with a father that's very strong personality. And I talk with my kids about that. And I always tell my kids that if my father saw the way I treat you, he will disown me from Alkhawaga family immediately. Really. There's no way. And by the way, if you want to raise your kids the same way like your father raised you, you're wrong. You're absolutely wrong. What's that?
They're looking up to you.
If I am what I was looking up to?
If the kids are looking up to you, then you are raised by your father.
Yeah, but that's why I changed it when I came here. I really changed it when I came here. And I have all respect for my father. And I always talk with my wife about our parents, by the way. And I tell her that we did not have perfect parents, but they did their best to raise us. I always tell her that. And I tell the same for my kids. I may not be the perfect father, but I did my best to raise you. I am a human being. And really, we have to be human beings. And I have all my respect. And I am the product of my father and my mother, who they were. And I'm sure my father did something right with me. And my father instilled some values in me. That's what it is. And I still identify with my father. But long time ago, I learned to separate myself from my father. I had to have my own identity. And actually, when all of us, we have to mentally separate from our fathers and mothers. If you want to have a separate identity, if you really want to do this, it's healthy for you. Do not be your father. And actually, I believe personally, if I analyze myself, I improved after I'm separated mentally from my father. And I was able to, I always tell the kids, I wrote an article on Facebook about this, forgive your parents and move on. Those kids there, please forgive your parents and move on. Don't let your parents a complex in your heads. Kids need to know that. We make mistakes, we're human beings. Your parents are not perfect, but we did our best. And when you're a parent, you will see how difficult it is. And especially the first child. The first child is exposed to the most inexperienced insecurities of the parents. And usually the first child is the one who's hit by this because the parents are young and insecure. Okay? Actually, I always tell my kids, my youngest one will be the healthiest one because we let him grow on his own. Our firstborn, of course, we were just anxious and we didn't know what to do and everything, there is a problem and like that. But usually the first is the smartest, by the way, in most cases. So life is too complicated. And again, you have to tell your kids, and you have to tell your kids to forgive you if you did something wrong with them, especially when they grow up. And we all have points where I don't want to use the word hated our parents in a phase of development. And Islam teaches us to respect our parents. And that's a value of Islam, by the way. Is just to be very, very caring with your parents. And Islam put a lot of emphasis on that. Because they know that kids can and that's the value there that we can add also to the American culture we talk about, is our respect to our parents. But kids need to know to forgive us, okay, and move on, identify with us, become like a role model for them, but we're not perfect role models. And if our father or our mother were not perfect, we need to move on and have our own identity. And we have what I talked earlier about, the internal locus of control. Don't blame your parents for everything you have done or everything you do. What was the third fear? Yes. Wow, people are paying attention to what I say. Wow. Thank you for asking this. Fear of castration, corporal punishment. This is something, it needs an article. This kind of castration fears is a very complicated thing. By age between 3 and 6, that the phallic phase of development, the child is very proud of his identity and who he is, like this. And there is a fear when the child sees the difference between boys and girls. There is a deep fear of castration. And psychoanalysts tell the mothers, don't be a castrating mother to your child. They don't mean physical castration, to kill their pride. Don't do that. By the way, especially the mother, a castrating mother, a mother who breaks down her child, who destroys her child's self-esteem. There is a fear of castration, fear of losing my body parts. If you miss it, you cannot get it back. I always say that. They always ask me, Dr. A, are you going to play golf this weekend? I don't play golf. A critical period of development of golf. I should have learned a long time ago. What does that mean? If you miss a critical period of development as a child, you're not going to be able to do it again. So if you missed age 5 and 6 and 7 and 8, there are phases of development you forgot to be empathic. For that phase, it will take you a long time to catch up on this later on. When the child holds a parent in such high regard and fears disappointing them, can you still get the child to come to you without feeling guilty? There's a balance there. Yeah, there is a balance. Now, again, it's how you say it. It's, again, I use that example with that, and I don't wait for my child to come and tell me that he's in trouble. I go and tell him all the time. And every day, my son comes from school, I ask him, how was your day today? What happened? Anything happened? Your grades are fine? Nothing happened? Nobody upset you like this? How's such? And if you see the child has a problem, let's say a child has a teacher that he doesn't like. How was the teacher today? You don't wait for the child to hide anything from you. You really need just time, just 15 minutes a day. Really 15 minutes a day. I remember my son went to one of his friends in their cars. American friends, neighbors, something like this. And he came to me and told me, Baba, you know what? I noticed something, that his father is asking my friend the same questions you're asking me. When he saw him, he told me, how was your day? How was your homework? How was your grades? How like this? I thought you're the only one who does that. He came to me and told me this. I go and ask him. Every day he comes, give him a hug and ask him, anything I need? Do you need help with? If you need any help with him, let me know. I'm here. There's nothing wrong with that. So when we say to instill some sense of guilt, it doesn't have to be, again, it doesn't have to be a severe guilt or a punishing guilt. What I'm saying is, I'm here, I don't want you to do something wrong because I will be upset, but I'm still available. You have to follow up on what you're doing. And there's no right or wrong answer as long as you mean something right. Kids who struggle with Islamophobia, even though as a parent I'm proud of American Muslim, especially with the Trump stuff. Yeah, I have a girl here who struggles with that, and she actually beats them up every time, and she doesn't care about them, and she always wins the argument. Maybe you can ask her what she does. Oh my God, she goes on Twitter. I gotta tell you something. I told her I'm proud of you. She went into a detailed argument with a white American kid from suburban Dayton, Ohio. Very pure, white, rich kid. And at the end, and it's long, and she read me what she wrote and what he wrote. And at the end, he told her, You're the only one who support your views by facts, and I have all respect for you. Can you and me run for presidents in the future? This girl with hijab. And she answered, and really she can tell you how to do this. And she does that all the time. And that's, yeah, and she can, if you want, maybe you can take her phone number, she can talk with your kid and how, and she does, and since she was young, okay, can I tell you a secret here? She wore hijab. I did not want her to wear hijab. Could you imagine? You know why she wore hijab? Okay, she wore hijab to show these kids her identity. She's the only girl in the whole school, Bellbrook, Ohio, who wears hijab. And she did it. She wants to say, get out of my face. I am here. I am a Muslim. Whatever you do, I'm in your face every day. This is what she did. And I want your kids to be like that. You don't care about anything. And maybe when you finish, you can talk to her. She can talk about it better than me. Actually, I learned from her. She teaches me how to deal with these things, and she doesn't care. And all of those she argues with are boys. They are not girls, they are boys. And she go on Twitter and Facebook and argue with them about politics. She educates her fellow and go and talk to them. And she earned their respect. And you can teach your kids to do that. But you have to be armed by knowledge. And you have to be armed by confidence. It takes a long time, and tell them this example. By the way, they say change happens by modeling and imitation. Social change, they call it Bandura theory of social change. Okay, so the reason I'm giving you examples of my own life and things I saw, because I really want you to say we're gonna do like this. And if you see something good, tell your kids and talk to them. And maybe invite somebody to talk about how to handle Islamophobic kids. And maybe Dalia one day, she can talk to you guys about that. Really, I'm going to find so many people who can do that. But you need to have the courage to take a stance and say what it is. But in the beginning, you shouldn't be shaky. I am a Muslim. I am wearing hijab. I am different. Like this. I told her, wait till you're 18. You might have issues. Wait, don't wear hijab. And I told her, do not wear hijab now. Wait. And she did it. I told her it's fine. And at the end, she did it, and I had all the respect for her. And I told her like this, and she explained to me why she wants to wear it. So there are models you can teach your kids and tell them, don't worry. And she can maybe type her Twitter conversation and give it to you guys. Really, you'll be amazed. She just destroyed the guy. And I can't, wallahi, she destroyed the guy. And the guy could not say anything. And at the end, he said that, I have respect for you. That's what all our kids should be. What's your advice for a couple who have disagree on the number of children they would like to have? Oh yeah. You need a compromise. You really need a compromise for this. I mean, these things are tough, but you need to understand each other and know exactly. But unless one wants one child and the other one wants 5 or 6, there are extremes. There is an issue there, but we need to find a compromise. I don't know what's the right answer for that, but you guys need to sit together and see what's the best for both of you. Is there any scientific proof of a statement you mentioned, the image of the father, the child's mind is related to the image of God? Say that I didn't quite accurately. Well, there's no scientific proof of that. No, there's no scientific proof of that. It's in the literature, and you can search it. I mean, a lot of psychological theories belong to the humanities. They do not apply to the critically studied scientific studies. No, you can't have a double-blind control study whether or not there is castration fears. No, it belongs to the humanities. And by the way, religion also belongs to the humanities. So it doesn't belong. There's no scientific proof of God's presence. If anybody thinks like that, there's no scientific proof. Faith is an emotional feeling. Faith is a personal, emotional feeling. A lot of the very intelligent, genius scientists are atheists. By the way, and they can argue with you against it. Faith is an emotional touch, right? And without the religious, when you read the Quran, and I asked a very famous scientist, he was Jewish, and I asked him this question, and he told me, he's very highly intellectual scientist who studies genetic epidemiology, goes by the facts. And I told him, is there any evidence, scientific evidence of religion? And he told me, I remember that very well. And he told me the only evidence is the presence of the text, the religious text. So you read the Quran and you ask, where is that coming from? There's no way somebody wrote this. And you look at life and understand the personal meanings for life like that. But to find, I don't believe scientific facts in the Quran, scientific miracles in the Quran. Yes, it is, but the Quran is not a science book. And if you don't understand that, you're gonna, because there are facts that's against and for and all of that. The Quran is a book for us, for our personal growth, for our faith, for understanding the meaning of life and the meaning of afterlife and who we are, and get that sense of humility that we have a role in this life. That's what faith is about. Is there an internal representation of God in our head? Yes, there is, but there's no scientific proof of that. But it is written. I'm talking about psychological theories that was written a long time ago. There are so many other questions. Okay. Overprotective parents. Does it lead to feelings of getting lost? Over driving, does it too much pressure on kids? Yeah, I mean, it's about balance, really, between protecting your kids and being overprotective. Yes, overprotective kids could make kids more dependent on you. You need to give them some freedom. But, by the way, and I have to say this, kids are not created equal. Kids are different. The same kids, if you have 2 or 3 kids, each, you have to be smart enough to know exactly what each kid needs. You can't apply the same rules. You might be somewhat overprotective with one child and more liberal with another, depending on his personality. So you have to vary in your way of dealing with the kids. As grandparents, is it okay to spoil grandkids? Are we helping them to form a rock or hurting them? What does the word spoiling means? Spoiling means if you praise them, that's not spoiling. Spoiling means you're giving them materialistic things for behaviors. No. Kids need to know the value of things. By the way, and this is also, I have no scientific proof of that, kids who are raised by grandparents might be actually healthier. Because grandparents in general, they are more insecure, have more time. So even in our countries, the people who have grandparents in their lives, actually this is healthy. Because of that, praising them is good. Spoiling kids by giving them stuff and money and toys and all of that might actually, that's called spoiling. That's not good. The most important thing, I don't care if you buy your kids, if you're rich and you buy your kids a lot of things, is fine. But kids need to know the value of themselves and the value of the money and the value of the relationship with you. That's the most important thing. Okay. Okay. I read this one. How can we instill love of Islam and being a Muslim in our children and youth with all this Islamophobia in the media? Yeah, actually, and what's that? Especially teenagers, yeah. The boys, yes. I mean, this is, it's how to make them proud of themselves. And, I mean, their interest in Islam depends on how they see you and how they see the Islamic values around them. And you have to start very early. And actually, when the kids know that, when they believe in the values as something helpful for them, and they are not shying away from saying they are Muslims very early, they will find support, by the way.
All the media outside, all what is happening with Islam, it's breaking that value of their minds. Like they're not believing it. They believe it's all about killing, it's all about pride. Like there's no ideal images for them to see what really is Islam.
You mean for our kids?
Yes.
Yeah, and we have to show them that.
Well, yeah, you, but it's not enough to just be at home and then outside it's always
Yeah, I know that's what it is. And that's why clearly we have to say that that's why when I say a civilized form of Islam, when I read what Carly Fiorina did, that when I teach them what Islam is about, and that's exactly what we need to talk to our kids about that. About this is not a natural way of dealing with any faith is to go and kill people and chop people's heads and do like this, or to hate people and things like that. I mean, these are people who are trouble. My way of explaining this to the kids, and I wrote about it, is that the terrorism culture is exactly like the gang culture. Terrorists act like gang members. You see that gangs in downtown Cincinnati or Dayton or Chicago, exactly. The involvement of it, for me to go to belong to a terrorist organization, exactly like me going to a gang. Okay. Terrorists lack, we'll talk about the father, and there are, Salman Akhtar is an Indian psychoanalyst who wrote a lot. He has an article about the psychology of terrorism. And he talked about that. He talked about terrorists lack the father figure, and they find in the terrorist groups what they lacked as the father. So the terrorist group becomes like the alternative father for them, exactly like gangs do. If you see a teenager who belongs to a gang, they do the same thing. They found that lost family in the gang. So the same thing, and they go and kill, and I can tell you what I wrote about the psychology of terrorism, especially ISIS and what they do, and why people are involved in that. But that's not Islam. That's a pathological or a patho-psychological way of dealing with life. Has nothing to do with Islam. Our rule is to provide a model exactly what Islam is. We always talk about what Islam is not about, and what you guys doing here, the activities you're doing, is exactly showing people what Islam is about. And we need to do a lot of that. Once you show people what Islam is about, people will learn, and our kids need to know that. And ask kids to come here. Please, if your kids have a problem in school, they need to have a sense of belonging, and get some group of youth together and some friends together and get them together and do activities for them. That's the key to that. Kids like to belong to a group, and if they don't give them a group here in the masjid, they're gonna find a group there somewhere. And after age 14 or 15 or 16, your kids, sorry for using the word, they don't want to see your face again. They want to have their own life, and I know that. After age 15 or 16, your kids, you want to, and we have to be satisfied. You don't have to go in their face and tell them this. You make sure that they are okay, let them move on, make sure that they are safe. It's 9 o'clock, I can't believe that. And I really have to stop here, and we enjoyed this nice discussion, and really wonderful group of people. And I'm really impressed by what you're doing. Please do more. of this. Bring the kids here. I'm going to talk to them in Dayton about what you guys are doing here. It's wonderful, and thanks very much for the invitation, and I wish you guys all the best. Thank you. Thank you.